Well, welcome back to Not Quite Art, and naturally tonight we are at the opening of Midsummer Night's Dream at the Sydney Theatre Company. I'm going to go see if I can find the sponsors room with free drinks.
While I push my way past this gleaming sponsors car, let's take a minute to reflect on the last 2 episodes of Not Quite Art. We discovered that the really exciting art isn't always to be found where you think it's going to be. And it doesn't always look like you think it's going to look. But this week's a doozy.
Good evening, everyone.
This week we're all about art and money.
I would like to welcome, in particular, tonight, of course, Commonwealth Bank, who've been with us now for 8 years. Any Actors Company show, of course, demands acknowledgement of Arty, the sponsorship of the Actors Company.
I don't know, is that your idea of where the world of art and business meets? It used to be mine, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that.
We've seen how culture can reinvent a city. But why does it happen in one post-industrial town and not another? Last week we looked at the transformation of Melbourne's laneways, but that wasn't just about street art. It's really about creative energy, and there are barriers that stop it and opportunities that support it. Both the barriers and the opportunities have a lot to do with money.
Some great things come out of economic depressions, and in the early 90s in Melbourne, you could rent a 2,000 square foot warehouse for $350 a month, and that's what I did in 1992, you know. And there were several hundred people like me in the city, and you know, they're making use of all these kind of like derelict spaces. The revitalisation of the laneways has been led by bars and artists, and in a lot of cases it's been artists setting up these bars. We've got these laneways, the whole city is gridded, and it means that there are tons of locations. It's like a great jungle for people to be doing this work in. It's a natural habitat for it, so we're blessed with it. But where it's come to now is that it's become a tourist attraction in the city. It attracts international tourists and local tourists, and Melburnians seem to be quite proud of their local culture.
When Andy and his friends moved in here, the idea of starting your own bar down the wrong end of some nondescript laneway must have seemed crazy. Now cheap liquor licensing means there's so many DIY bars around that choosing between them's become an industry in itself.
According to these bar secrets of Melbourne, the culture here is going off. There's like live music bars, jazz bars, rock bars, manga, anime, something or other bars. There's even video art bars. I mean, what the hell's a video art bar?
This is Horse Bazaar. This is actually one of several video art bars in Melbourne. Here you can drink alcohol and subsidise Australia's video art making community at the same time. These guys have fitted it out, built the furniture and even invented this impressive looking wraparound video wall.
It's just really striking just to have an image or a video or an animation that wraps all the way around the room. Like people are used to this little square box, and to actually be sort of partially surrounded by it, really, it can be quite a powerful thing. It can be a party here, and you really completely reshape how the room feels by what's being projected onto the walls.
Who are the people that make these videos? Where do these come from?
Local artists. We've sort of been cultivating relationships with a number of the local unis, RMIT and VCA, Melbourne Uni.
I like it because it's sort of quite sort of rough and simple. You know, it doesn't grab your attention all the time. You can sort of zone in and zone out. It's sort of bits of paper that are just scanned in and sort of animated within the software. So I think it's quite clever.
What about your toilet? What's the story?
We've got a rear projection urinal. So we we just project video on the urinal to sort of toy with men's psyche as they're relieving themselves.
And do people make videos specifically for the urinal?
But I just got an email from a Swiss artist a couple of days ago who wants to make something for the urinal.
You're making money off the bar to fund your video habit, you're making money off your video habit to fund your bar. How does that work?
Primarily the selling alcohol is the idea, is that's what funds the interesting cultural projects.
What'd you get on if you had to pay a couple of $1 million for your liquor licence and you had to, you know, get the right to 30 poker machines? And
the only poker machines we have here are some of our digital ones that
don't really bring that great a return.
oh yeah, they work.
They work.
I suddenly feel at home. I'm from New South Wales.
Right, okay.
This place suddenly feels familiar to me.
Yeah. Well, cough up.
And that's where the money comes in. Creative spaces like this happen in Melbourne because the costs and the risks of doing something like this make it viable. In Sydney, or as I discovered when I tried to do something like this in Newcastle, this kind of creative energy is blocked by money and poker machines. Performance spaces, video art bars, or even a lot of creative uses of empty shop fronts, well, they're way out of the do-it-yourself league.
Everybody talks about how hard it is to get a liquor licence and how they are attached to the poker machines, and it really just sort of makes it impossible for guerrilla startups or people sort of bootstrapping to get there. You have to be well funded, and that sort of often would sort of quash any sort of creative endeavour having that amount of money.
It's not just places to have a drink that we're talking about. Even if you've never been to a place like Horse Bazaar or visited Melbourne's graffiti-covered laneways, all of this DIY cultural activity fuels a much larger economic chain. Even if you're not looking for these kinds of cultures, they've got a habit of coming to find you anyway. This is 3000. These guys sift through cultural happenings in hundreds of places like Horse Bazaar and send them out as a rundown to thousands of people. And it's not just people that are looking for a good night out who are paying attention to this stuff.
Which is essentially a subcultural guide to Melbourne. It's a designed email newsletter which gets sent out to a database of sort of inner city hipsters. And we really started about just over 2 years ago, literally from, you know, my bedroom. And I suppose what we're doing is really offering a subcultural filter where we take what we perceive to be the best things available for that week and package it up in a small, accessible, designed email newsletter. And the response to that has been quite profound. It's a column-based email divided into the sections like cafe and restaurant, etc. And between those sections, there's a little advertising banner, and we sell it to one advertiser per week. And what it's enabled us to do is go out and sell it to fairly big brands like a Mini or
Converse,
Levi's, yeah.
Why do these companies want to be associated with that kind of stuff?
There's a certain kind of cultural equity to or cultural quality to what we cover. Art of a certain calibre, gigs of a certain kind, bands of a certain nature. You know, there's a kind of, yeah, associative effect which they're really keen to trade upon. Originally, we did start with that, with a reader who wants to go and just engage in these things out in the real world in an entertainment sense. I would say that we probably have shifted somewhat to a resource for creative people who are thinking, okay, I need to get in touch with a decent graphic designer. I don't know any at this stage sitting in my office, you know, high up in a skyscraper. So let me just log on to 3000, click through to some links and find out what is actually going on. It's quite interesting that while the art starts as independent, and it is always independent, at some stage the commerce needs to come in via these brands to push the art out to a much broader audience.